Welcome to episode 192 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. So we have reached the halfway point in the Toronto Fringe Festival, and if you've been participating, you might be finding, as I have, that the days of the week have no meaning. I don't know what day it is, so thankfully I had Edit Stageworthy podcast in my calendar. Otherwise, I would be panicking at some point tomorrow when the episode's supposed to come out. Have you been fringing? Have you seen a show that you've loved? If you have, tell me about it by finding me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at StageworthyPod. I should also make sure to tell you about my show, The Commandment. And there are still a few shows left, and there are some tickets left for the performances. The Commandment is a dark comedy about what happens when an atheist discovers that he's been chosen to deliver God's new commandment. You'll find The Commandment at the Tarragon Extra Space, and you can find out all about it by finding it in your Fringe listings or by following me on my social links on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby. And you can also find details on simpletruththeatre.com. My guests this week are Sarah Joy Bennett and Ginette Mohr from the award-winning hit Fringe show Night Feed, on now at the Toronto Fringe Festival. Which of you would like to describe Night Feed?
Oh,
Sarah Joy?
Oh yeah, you take this. I'd like to describe Night Feed. Well, it's an adult puppet play, but it's also part physical theater, because that is the background that all of us are coming to it from, and it is a fever dream. It's a new mother's fever dream in the armpit of another night, trying to feed her child, and her world has shrunk to basically the size of her couch. And in that hot, messy soup of hormones being a bit messed up, haven't slept properly for 3 weeks anyway now, and this brand new life kind of opening up in front of her for which she's got no roadmap. The objects that she can see around her in her apartment start to come to life, and they start to speak to her. And they each give voice to her own private concerns and fears and self-doubt and, you know, the things she's kind of dreaming about missing. And it's just one of those moments where the voices in your head are sometimes incredibly tangible. And I felt like my whole apartment was talking to me in the middle of those feverish nights, and like everything I saw had an opinion on what I was doing wrong. Every book on my shelf had an opinion about, you're feeding that baby wrong, you should be more attached, you should be less attached. Like all of my old research books were like, you should be getting back to work, you should be focusing your mind on this because the workforce won't wait for you on the other side, and all the dust bunnies were rolling across the floor telling me what a slob I was. And yeah, so that's what it came out of.
So I mean, it strikes me that the isolation of those weeks in the middle of the night, feeding a baby, not sleeping well, all of that is one of the things that people don't talk about.
It's a private time in a person's life. Like, you don't tend to see it because it is so isolating. And, you know, when a woman comes out of it, 9 times out of 10, she's plumped back into the workforce, and she's kind of got to go to get back to where she was. And so we don't really have very many, I don't think, representations of what that time looks like. And I felt kind of unprepared for it. How did you feel? Did you feel surprised in those early days?
I felt overwhelmed, and I felt, you know, unless it was with, I had to really be careful about who I spoke to about my fears and anxieties. I think those early nights, early days came with, for me, a lot of feelings of shame around, well, I feel so grateful to have this healthy, beautiful baby. and yet I'm also really missing my life.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people,
feeling.
a lot of, well-meaning, well-loving friends and family who did not want to hear about the dark sides of my experience and how I was longing for something other than, okay, an hour until the next time that I'm feeding and the weight of the responsibility for this very small human. Felt like it just felt immense. Yeah. So I also found outlets in writing or spontaneous blurts to friends. But I was also, I was also anxious around what I was saying and my appropriateness of comment. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with all of that, what was the impetus to create a play based on this very private, very isolating time?
Well, while I was doing all of these night feeds, I had this little tray beside me on the table, and it was like a stage manager's tray. You know how backstage stage managers, I love them so much, they're so organized. They like take the masking tape and they chart out the table, and they say like gun prop goes here, bottle prop goes here, this guy goes there. And it's just so efficient, and I've always just loved that. And so I made a little stage manager's tray that went beside me while I was breastfeeding, and it said like water glass because I needed water all the time, and like food because I was hungry all the time, and phone, a book, and pad of paper and pen because I was constantly scribbling things down on a pad of paper and a pen, and I would be furious if the pad and paper and pen weren't there within my reach because I needed to get this down. And I just scribbled down all the random little sentences that came into my head of like, breast pump has a face if you look at it the right way. What would breast pump say to me? Breast pump is an aerobics instructor. Breast pump is a motivational speaker. Breast pump is going to pump me up and get my ass back into that workforce. And these were all on just like tiny little slips of paper, and it made me laugh when I like really needed to laugh. But it was just a handful of scraps of paper for 2 end-of-it years because I didn't feel like I had headspace. After my child became 2, my world grew quite a bit bigger. I was able to handle bigger things. My brain cleared a little bit. She had more independence. I had a little bit more independence. She wasn't napping all the time. We could get out of the house, and I was ready to dip my toe back into trying to do a bit of creative work. And David and I took Holly away to a cottage, just the 3 of us, for a week. And our plan was, okay, you take Holly for 3 hours in the morning, and David will write. And then David took Holly for 3 hours in the afternoon, and I would write. And at the end of a week, I had an incredibly rough first draft of the play, and David had composed quite a lot of music.
Nice.
And that was how that first got started. And then I had something that I felt I could show some friends that I really trusted, and to kind of ask them if they thought I had anything.
And I said, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You cannot not write this.
So then the ball started rolling from there. That was practically a year ago.
Okay. Yeah. And so you had then applied for, how many fringes did you apply for?
3.
Oh, 3.
We only applied, we just got magic. We had Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, because among us, there are 8 children. That's in the blanket of like the whole family that created this show. Yes. There's 8 kids that we're considering. So we could not handle out of province or anything further afield as much as we would like to. So we're like, well, okay, wait, maybe we could manage Montreal with a little bit of luck, but ultimately it's probably good that we didn't get in to the Montreal Fringe. I'm not entirely sure how we would have managed that. It would have been hard.
Now they tell people that they can't, that because Montreal and Ottawa overlap.
They do overlap quite a bit.
Too much now for people to do both. So they've basically now said if you're doing one, you can't do the other just because of the timing.
So that kind of turned out to be just as well. And we did Ottawa because my parents live in Ottawa, and they were able to
Yeah.
take my daughter while we were doing the show, and we could crash at their place, so that helped quite a lot.
I'm sure that helped a lot.
Yeah.
So what was it like in Ottawa? I mean, you were an outstanding show.
Outstanding overall production.
Nice.
That was the award that we got, and that meant the world to us.
Yeah.
You have. That was your first time doing an Ottawa Fringe? How did it strike you?
I had done it 10 years prior with a solo show called Fish Face.
It's gotten a lot bigger.
I love it there. And, Ottawa is looking really good.
Sexy little city.
Yeah. I felt really welcomed. And, I felt at ease there. It was great.
Yeah, it was warm. It was their biggest attendance ever.
Nice.
They broke their record
That's
in terms
awesome.
of attendance. It's really come a long way, and it's a fairly young festival too.
Yeah.
So I say kudos to them. They've got some gorgeous new venues. There's the new Ottawa Art Gallery that's been built, and now it's kind of an extension of Arts Court. Some lovely new black box theaters. It's really cool. It's really good.
I came back halfway through. We had a couple days off, and then I brought my husband Tim and our 2 kids, who are age 5 and 7 right now, to back to Ottawa. So I felt like I was kind of straddling doing the play and then also doing all the museums.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
You can't go to Ottawa without seeing like 5 museums.
you can't.
No.
Yeah, absolutely, you can't. This show premiered in Ottawa, so nobody had seen it outside of your group, really, except for you did a bit at the Puppet Mongers.
The Puppet Mongers Festival
Yeah.
was fantastic to start at. That was so awesome to do the Puppet Festival, because I have rarely seen a more supportive, enthusiastic community than the puppetry community. Possibly because it's small.
Yes.
Like it's a group of so many really dedicated artists who are creating their own work, and we felt a lovely warm reception from the puppetry community. We did a section of our piece.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of help from Puppet Mongers, actually. They've been wonderful supporters of ours.
Nice.
And then Ottawa was the very first time that anyone saw the complete show.
So what was the reaction like? Awards aside, what was the reaction like to the show?
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
It was crazy good.
Yeah, lots of laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the most touched by how many really young people came up to us afterwards and said how much it meant to them. Especially like a big crew of like 20-year-old guys, which I was not expecting.
No.
I wasn't expecting that. Like, I wanted very much to make something that could be enjoyed, that could be enjoyed by anyone. But it's a love song to young moms, and it is mainly for them. I want new moms to feel less alone, less crazy, that the fact that you are thinking these weird, inappropriate things doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad mom.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that this is a strange and messed up time in a person's life, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. And it gets better and it passes. And you have your whole life to develop a wonderful relationship with this child. And in the early days, it's a strange, slightly alien creature that you are saddled with vast amounts of responsibility. And it's scary. It's legitimately scary.
Yeah.
So it was a love song for new moms. And I was deeply gratified that a lot of new moms, old moms, really responded to it and came up to us afterwards and gave us a lot of love. But so did a lot of 20-year-old guys who were like, this is something I've never thought about. I don't even want kids, but this is a whole section of life that I've never considered. And now I'm thinking about it. And thank you for teaching me about these things. And it gave me a lot of hope. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, in that vein, there's, I think been a lot of response, and I've never seen anything like this in terms of the style. And that's something that we were really working quite laboriously at. Well, how is it that we can be live actors as well as puppeteers and puppets speaking to live actors, and where is our focus, and
where is the realism, and where is the surrealism, and where is the presentational acting versus the realistic acting? Realistic acting in surrealist circumstances.
Yeah. And what's going to help us, achieve this in playability. We found that working with mirrors was really helpful with puppetry, even though it brought back a lot of early trauma, with my ballet. I love looking at it in a mirror when I'm rehearsing. But it really was effective with puppets. Right?
Helped a lot.
And then there's also the challenge of to see if puppetry is effective. Ideally the scene needs to be memorized and quite choreographed. So, but then there's a lot of things that we had to say, this isn't working. So we've got to recreate this puppet. Maybe this is a totally different kind of puppet. Maybe this is, there's some things in the text that need to change. So even now I still feel like there are remnants of the old, versions of the script or old choreography that I'm like, no. Like I'm still overriding some of the old versions.
Yeah, we had quite a few puppetry rebuilds, a lot of puppet rebuilds. Shauna Ryder has been an amazing artist to work with. She designed and built all of our puppets, and because it's kind of hard to describe, but because it's not perhaps traditional puppetry, all of the puppets, because we have one that is like a papier-mâché crafted, built off of a clay model infant, like incredibly rendered and beautifully painted and like very, very realistic. And then we also have like this strange, slightly Henson-y like mouth puppet.
It's a dust bunny.
It's a dust bunny that we built that at a dryer lint, but it's got slightly a Henson quality to it because it definitely has eyes. And then we have some things that don't have eyes, some things that are entirely objects, like a liquor bottle, a whole bunch of books.
Yeah, a bike.
It's
parts of a bike.
Parts, but not a whole bike. And each of the books move a different way. So it's object puppetry, it's traditional puppetry, it's mouth puppetry, and it's physical theater. And then there's times that Ginette and I don't have puppets at all, that we are just being internal voices, or we're just using our hands. We just kind of went with whatever worked for that character in that moment.
Yeah.
It sounds like the kind of thing that you can write it down, and then you've got to spend a lot of time figuring it out, because the script is only a fraction of what you need for this, right? Because like you said, you need the puppets and you need the choreography. What was the process of putting that together like? Because it sounds like it's a long process.
Well, the script itself was like nothing but question marks, really, because I decided I wouldn't ask any questions when I was writing it. I would just write it, and then I'm like, we'll figure out how to do it later. And so I would write like, right breast says this. Blah, 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 blah. Left breast is muffled by the baby's head, so says more, 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 more. And then her hair says this, and then a bottle says this, and then the breastfeeding book replies with this. And so there's like 30 different voices. And I just wrote it. And then we started workshopping in February. And I was like, here we go. What do we do?
There was this moment where you said something like, so, I think it was two characters that I was playing. They're speaking back to back.
Yes, you're playing both of these guys that are arguing with each other. How do we do that?
Yeah. But that for me, like that's the juicy part of it. I just I love those question marks that you're talking about. How do we, those creative questions, those problems. And Mike Peterson, who was guest puppetry director, was phenomenal in his specificity and detail. Said something like it's even in the physical theater parts of it, it's puppet thinking. So we're always in that framework too, which it was great. Yeah, but it was very collaborative. I think there was, for me, I felt like, all right, jump in, deeply invested, but not attached. How do I dive into the deep end but then be prepared that that thing totally needs to go. It's not working.
We had to throw out a lot of stuff.
Ah.
You have to drown a lot of your darlings and be like, I loved that moment where my face was the breast and the breast pump was sucking my nose. I thought that was hilarious, but it didn't work, so we got rid of it.
So we had a lot of grievances.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I bought the shower cap, the swimming caps that were going to turn our whole heads into boobs, and Ginette and I were going to have our faces squished together, and it was going to be hilarious. It didn't work.
I think there's something about being able to kill the babies like that. For it's a terrible phrase, but like literally when you're creating something, to be like, well, that doesn't work. I know we're attached to it, but it takes a certain amount of bravery to be able to go to do that, right?
Yeah.
One of the challenges to any creation is like being able to accept that something doesn't work and move on and rebuild.
Yeah. Take that deep breath and say, okay, well, that's great information.
Yeah. Fail again, fail better.
Some of that stuff still like the stuff that you remove still informs the stuff that's there in a way, right? You've learned something.
It's like choreographic subtext.
Yes, it is literally, it is that. It's choreographic subtext because you've learned something and it will inform, but it's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get to where you are now without it.
Yeah.
What was one of the, in terms of like, sounds like there's so many challenges to putting this thing together. What were were there challenges you didn't expect to have with this? Ones that really surprised you?
Well, I am relatively new to puppetry. I've seen a lot, but I haven't done a lot. I've done a lot of physical theater and mask, and I think that's informed my work. I think I was probably a bit too cavalier when I decided we would do a lot of object puppetry in this piece. I would be like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be easy. I'm going to go to Value Village. I'm going to buy all the things. I'm just going to buy a book and a bottle and a glass and a thing, and then, ta-da, they're puppets. $20 later, I've got puppets, and I'll just move them around, and it'll be fabulous, and people will know what I'm doing. And it'll totally read from the audience. But thank God, we had Shauna Ryder, who, even though we ended up doing quite a lot of object puppetry, her big thing was, I hate object puppetry, but I will make this object puppetry work.
Yeah.
And she taught us so much, and she was able to look at the objects and show us how some of them could be so much more alive than others. How not all bottles are created equal. It's like, no, this bottle is alive, but this bottle isn't. You forget about this one. You have to go with this one. And this book, we want to turn this book into this is going to be a bird book. You can't just grab the book and flap it around. That's just, no, we have to work on slipping dowels in between the pages and coiling it and treating it and reinforcing the spine. The visual artistry that was new to me, and I have so much respect for. That's what she taught us.
Yeah, I love her philosophies around belief in the life of the object and how relational it is, right? So every person's going to bring an object to life or a puppet to life in a different way, and how that animation happens is very much relational. So it happens, in the space. And the more I believe that my bike parts are a bike, the more the audience will too. There's something very profound and spiritual about that. I love it.
And you figure out where the weight and the gravity of the object is, and is it like we did a lot of Laban work. Does this object slide, or do the corners of the bottles, do those become its feet? So does it have a little hop two step, or is it more of a glide, or can it float, or does it swim? And there was a lot of playing around.
Yeah.
A lot of playing around. And then every now and again, something would click, and we would say that's it.
That's it.
That's it. It's an angelfish. Yeah, that breastfeeding book is an angelfish.
Yeah.
Of course.
It is. And to find that piece, and then if that's the hook, if I can find the tail of the angelfish in my body, then I can find the voice and find the character. And I find those hooks have been really useful for me. Switching from, I think there's about 16 different characters that I play, probably similar for you.
Yeah, but
dropping in, in a matter of a half a second into a character.
It's interesting to me because, of course, if you've never done puppetry, you would have the thought that you have. Well, of course, I'm just going to get the things and they will be puppets.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Puppetry is hard.
Yeah.
You end like Corinne, who plays our mom, and she has one puppet, the infant puppet, the whole way through the play, and she needs to keep that puppet alive for 60 minutes, breathing and moving, in addition to her own journey, and aside from the fact that she's got like 50 different voices talking to her that she needs to be charting her own journey. She also needs to be keeping the baby alive and moving and looking and feeding and crying, and
it's amazing because until you've seen a puppet die, like until you've seen a puppet like stop being alive, you don't even think about how necessary it is for them to move.
Yeah.
But as soon as you watch one go from living to not, it's like, oh, you you really feel that when that moment happens. So that's like an unexpected necessity for a puppet, just to keep them moving.
Oh yeah, my good buddy Andrew says he does a lot of puppetry. He says a human struggles to die, on stage. We do this thing where like, oh, it's really tough to die, but a puppet really struggles to stay alive. That's their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. What has brought you the most joy in creating this show?
You first. It has brought me immense joy to see how many artists that I love so dearly have given so much of their love and time and energy into this project. Because I mean, like with any new work, and especially any fringe piece, it's a massive gamble. You have no idea what, if anything, there will be at the end of it. And also, we're all older people. Like, I mean, we're not in our early 20s anymore, and we've got families, and we've got other jobs, and we've got like a lot of responsibilities and commitments. So like, it's not the same as it was when you were 22, and it was an amazing, fantastic, super free summer camp of a thing to do. It means more to me. It means so much to me that older, experienced artists who have got fuller lives and bigger, deeper responsibilities were still willing to go on this journey with me and to give so much of their creative gifts to this project because they believed in it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There's nothing like that joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that speaks to the depth of your work, And I feel just so touched, to be a part of this process. For me, it's been the spirit of play, the spirit of improv. Yes, and there's a kind of beautiful, creative monster bubble, devilish time that we've been playing in, and that's like, I just love that pure joy of what can we do? How do we solve this tricky bit? Jumping in.
It has been a lot of very childish play. Very childish play of like just taking two diapers and being like, okay, how do we bring them to life? And what is their voice? And like for a whole afternoon, like figuring out 50 different ways that two wet diapers can move around a stage and speak.
Yeah.
Pretty fun childish play.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was like that's where a lot of the like when you can go back to be that childish play aspect, there's so much more creativity that can come out. And as adults, it's a thing that we don't allow ourselves to do often.
Yeah. We're on task.
Yeah,
we don't have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
No. So it's great to be able to, like, that you had the opportunity to play in this way and give yourself the time to do it.
Yeah. And also sometimes to let go of the objects. There have been moments where I felt, I think I'm losing the ground here in this scene. I'd like to just put the bike down for a minute and play this scene as though it's live action.
Yeah.
And for me, moments where I can do that really, I can find my feet again as an actor.
Nice.
In the scene.
Yes,
because I can get pretty caught up in kind of the nuance of the physical, puppetry and
because there's so many like little mechanical things that you need to keep track of, that you don't think about when you're just a performer on stage. Like you don't think about, okay, I've said my line, and now how am I going to walk across the stage and sit down in that chair? Because you don't need to think about that.
Of course, yes.
It's just you and your body. But if it's you and a bottle or a book, it is the question of like, okay, how does the bottle get from A to B and jump and land and so you're thinking about a whole lot of pretty mechanical things. So it was always helpful when we would put the objects down and then just do a scene like two people speaking to each other to remind ourselves.
And the question of focus, I mean, I get so much by looking at you right now. I can feel you. I can feel how we're relating to each other. But when we are in breast pump or, an object, my focus needs to be on the object, and this object is looking at its scene partner. But I am not directly looking at my scene partner. So
it's a very hard habit.
That is well, I mean, as an actor, it would be very hard. Also, to keep from emoting the character. Because the character emotes, you don't.
Exactly.
Right? And that's so hard. I would have such a horrible time doing that.
I don't know.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
As an actor, you're always putting stuff on the face.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
And I'm captain of the rubber face team. so I don't want to say, but I may have I may have gotten a few notes that have been like, can you less with the facey? This is great voice, great. Just keep being the voice of that object. We don't want to look at your face right now.
But then you can't be completely neutral with the face because, otherwise your voice goes dead.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. So what's that?
It's like half of the nose up, nothing. Mouth, yes. It's so
It's wild.
In exploring this show, there's a lot of personal stories in this show. There's a lot of personal stuff in this show. Was there ever any fear or trepidation about putting this, and again, this thing that people don't talk about being a new mother, on stage for people to see? Was there ever a time when you were ever afraid of it?
Not to a certain degree. I mean, obviously, no one needs me to say this, but obviously we live in a time where there seems to be just quite a lot of vitriol around, and certainly everybody has got quite a lot of very big opinions about how to be a woman, and everyone's always had quite a lot of opinions about how to be a mother. It's one of the times in your life where you get the most strangers coming up to you on the street telling you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, please stop touching my belly.
Yeah. So, to a certain extent, I suppose I was a little afraid that we'd have, some trolls on our website being like, how dare you say this? You don't deserve to be a mom. But we haven't had any of that. I think I was a little afraid of that, but it hasn't happened. And I just felt pretty sure that, I think that when you tell a very honest story from a place of humility, and I think you have a decent chance of speaking to a commonality in your audience. When you try to make something that will please everyone or that speaks to everyone, you're sure to fail. But if you try to be as honest as you can in this one way and do your best to take your ego out of it, your chances of having someone come up to you and say, I know what you mean. I felt like that too. And one of the reasons that I did write the play is because when I started getting out into the world and meeting more moms in my neighborhood, I would sometimes say something like, I don't know about you, honey, but I sometimes imagine that my breast pump is talking to me in the middle of the night. And I had quite a few moms be like, oh yeah, I totally know what you mean. Yeah,
that's great.
So there seemed to be a commonality to it that I wanted to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it can be a great conversation starter. Seeing a piece like this, and I really want to challenge some of these outdated mom stereotypes that I still see. I mean, we were at a show a little while ago where the punchline of this sketch was something like there's this mom character on stage stirring, as moms do, cookie dough.
Yeah.
And the punchline was something like, even moms want to have sex. Like, awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we want. There's a lot that I want to be seen and heard for, and I think we can get that started.
It's almost like there's a toxic femininity is the wrong phrase, but there's like a lot of like you said, everybody has an opinion about how to be a mom, even people who will never be a mom.
Yeah.
Men have lots of opinions about how best to be a mom. Everybody. It's funny because I think I have a couple of friends who are pregnant right now, and they're like, the number of times that people just walk up to me and start talking to me.
Oh yeah,
that never happened before.
It's fascinating.
And suddenly, because I'm visibly pregnant, people are walking up and striking up conversations, but almost judgy conversations.
I mean, sometimes the conversations are awesome. Yeah. Like, I mean, there is a positive aspect to it. Like, I do feel like walking around with my daughter now opens me up to start conversations with other people. So my relationship to my city changed when I had a child. Basically, my relationship to everything changed when I had a child. Like, that was one of the aspects of the play that I really wanted to explore. My relationship to my working life, my relationship to my husband, my relationship to my apartment, to my city, getting around, traveling, mobility in my city. My friends who I couldn't quite see anymore. My own mental space because I felt groggy all the time. My creative work, my body, my clothes, like everything. My bike, everything changed. But there's good aspects too, because now when I travel around my city, I feel like I'm a little bit braver. Like I feel like, I don't know, I can go up to someone and start a conversation with them if I want to, because I'm clearly not a threat. Because look at me, I'm walking around with a kid. I can ask for directions. I can go into a coffee shop and take out my little sippy cup and say like, hello, I'm sorry, but I am taking some milk from your canister here because my child needs milk. Thank you so much. I hope you have a really lovely day. And people are really nice about it. So
it opens up a village.
Sometimes it opens up a bit of a village, but community building takes a lot of work too.
Yeah. I find I'm still struggling a little bit with expectations. Even, so my kids got out of school a couple days ago. And there's a feel in some of the moms that I talk to around, let's make the most of the summer. Let's get all the sunblock on and get sweaty and go to all the splash pads and get sandy. And I don't know how to say, I want to be in a dark room making theater. Can I, so the question around, did you have a good day? Did you get outside? Like getting outside being a good day. Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean it was the best day.
Yes. I did get outside. I would have preferred to be inside.
So finding that balance, even now, is a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
It's hard to trust yourself as a mom. It's hard to trust yourself.
Do you think that's because so many people have opinions?
My personal feeling is that living in an urban center, far away from my family. Back in the day, if people lived in smaller communities with their families around them, you would generally have, opinions from your family, which you would agree with or not agree with, but at least there would also be help.
Yes.
Going along with those opinions. Like there would be a little bit of shared childcare, a little bit of assistance going on with those opinions. Now, for myself anyway, I live in a big city with no family, not a lot of help. I'm working on building community, but I have to put in the hours. But a lot of access to a vast number of opinions on the mommy boards and the internet and a bajillion parenting books. So there's a million opinions, but there's no help.
Right. It's almost like there should be like a tax on opinion. Like, can you help me?
Oh my God, yes.
If you're willing to, if you're going to give me that opinion, now we have to put in.
Oh,
you have to put in
I
some
would
hours.
make so much money from Google. Because that was one of my biggest mistakes in those early days was looking things up on the internet.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
dangerous.
because it leads to the worst.
Oh, yeah,
It's gonna mean, the big ones.
Tax on opinion would be awesome.
Right? Like if you're going to give me that opinion, now you have to put in some time.
That'd be
You've given me the
great.
opinion, now you owe me. So would you like to, I don't know, play for a bit?
If I should only breastfeed my child, will you come
Will you come and like,
do a night feed for
Yes.
me?
Amazing.
Can
I count on you
Can
at
I
3 o'clock
latch
this
this
morning?
pump onto
Yes.
your body to suction the milk juice out of your body? Because if so, well, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
I think
That would be
that'd be so.
great.
I think that's definitely a thing that should happen. I cannot wait to see this show, you guys. I actually cannot wait to see this show.
I'm so
We're
excited to see
looking
yours,
forward to that.
man.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thanks for doing this.
Thank
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.